Welcome to Disturbing the Peace. I'm your host, John Amanchukwu, coming to you live from Y-Refi Studios. What does it say about our culture when a man's public breakdown becomes entertainment? Political violence keeps escalating, and evil hides behind the very institutions people are supposed to trust. Today, best-selling author and host Dinesh D'Souza, the man, the myth, and the legend, joins me to discuss Perez Hilton's disturbing live stream, the latest alleged assassination plot targeting President Trump, and what it all means heading into the 2026 midterm elections. And then Lieutenant Colonel Allen West weighs in on the armed citizen who stopped a deadly mass shooting in Idaho and the shocking case of a Florida pastor accused of preying on a child. All here today on Disturbing the Peace.
Protector on a mission from heaven. There's too much at stake to be quiet. Let's disturb the peace. Yeah, you. Let's disturb the peace. With John Amanchukwu. Disturb the peace. I'm a protector on a mission from heaven. There's too much at stake to be quiet. Let's disturb the peace. Me and you. Disturb the peace. With John Amanchukwu. Disturb the peace.
Joining me now is the one and only Dinesh D'Souza, one of the most important conservative voices in America, best-selling author, award-winning documentarian, and host of the weekly show, Dinesh. Dinesh, welcome to Disturbing the Peace, my friend.
I am very happy to be here, and I will do my part to disturb the peace.
Indeed, we need to create a noise disturbance. And so last night, one Perez Hilton had what some people are labeling as a mental breakdown or a meltdown or a mental issue. But I personally think it's a demonic influence, something that took over him. We see this in the Bible with the demoniac of Gadara, where he's cutting himself, and Perez Hilton does the same thing in this video clip that I'm getting ready to show you briefly. Take a look at this.
No, we need to call. No.
Perez, why are you crashing out?
No. Don't do that.
Yo, we're gonna pray for you, bro.
All right, hold it right there. Hey. So there's a long knife in his arm, in his hand, probably about 12 inches long. And he begins to take the knife and he begins to lacerate himself. Watch.
The view's not worth it, bro. Go back home. Leave Florida, bro. He got a rooster in the back and shit, acting like he's holy and shit.
My children. Oh, shoot me, mother. The police are here.
All right, so that's enough of that. So Perez Hilton live streamed what some call a mental health crisis on TikTok last night. His audience called the police. He is now hospitalized. He is a father of 3. A month ago, he said reading his Bible and attending church were helping him. Dinesh, what does this moment say to you about what's going on with Perez Hilton?
You know, ever since the Enlightenment and then continuing more recently, there's a secular way to try to look at these things that, in my view, is kind of inadequate. And it is in terms of psychiatric breakdown, self-harm, hating yourself. Now, I don't deny that those are some of the symptoms and descriptions of what's going on, but I agree with you that there are deeper explanations that have to do with the spirit, that have to do with the other world, the world behind the world. And we're seeing more of this kind of stuff lately, it seems to me. And I think it's partly because people are opening themselves up to more demonic influences. There's a revival of kind of pagan idolatry. There's, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but there's a whole literature now about people who are trying to use these UAPs or unidentified phenomena, descriptions of like creatures from other planets or other even realms. And there's people who try to like gain access to these beings in the belief that, oh, I'm going to get a higher consciousness out of it, and I'm going to rise above my humanity. But I think those of us as Christians were trained to know, to recognize, guess what? All this stuff that seems so new is actually described rather vividly in the Bible, and it's stuff that we should approach with extreme caution. I'm still trying to make sense of Tucker Carlson talking about that demon that attacked him in the middle of the night. And again, you're tempted to say this was just some kind of bad dream, but Tucker says, no, I had all kinds of bruises all over my body. And so I don't write off the possibility that these are, in fact, demonic inflictions and afflictions that are now a sign of our times.
Speaking of demonic influence, would you agree and say that people like Candace Owens has to be under demonic suppression with all of the things that she's doing? I'm talking to Dinesh D'Souza. We'll be right back after this break. Private student loan debt in the U.S. totals about $300 billion. About $45 billion of that is labeled as distressed. While Refi refinances distressed or defaulted private student loans that others won't touch. They provide you with a custom loan payment based on your ability to pay. While Refi is not a debt settlement company, and they work with each borrower individually, tailoring each loan to each borrower's specific situation. You will not be contacting a faceless call center. While Refi can reduce your monthly payment and guarantees interest rates under 6%, ensuring affordability and financial relief. While Refi does not care what your credit score is. While Refi can save you thousands of dollars by refinancing and even lower your total cost. Just call 888-WIRE-REFI-85 or log on to wirefi.com. That's WIREFY.com.
I do think having, spent time with Candace, spoken at her Blexit events, felt I was fairly close to Candace, that I saw her as just a very talented, media savvy, well-spoken, intelligent person. And the Candace that I see now is a little disconnected from that, right? She's become truly a new person. And so I don't have an explanation for how one could have traveled from here to there. Clearly, she's undergone some great transformation. But see, when normal people do change their mind, right? There are atheists who become Christians, Christians sometimes who lose their faith, communists who become conservatives. So I'm familiar with all of that. But in almost all those cases, you'll notice that people give an account of how they went from here to there. Like, I used to be an atheist, and then I had a crisis, and it caused me to rethink. And but notice that with Candace, without explanation, she has emerged as a new person. And so I think, again, there is, to me, something very dark and diabolical is going on, because some of the stuff she says is not just wrong, but it's downright malicious. It goes to a depth of depravity that seems very unworthy of the old Candace.
All right, hold it here. I just want to ask some questions. I'm just asking questions. All right, Dinesh D'Souza, I have a right to ask questions. I have a brain. Let me ask some questions. I'm just copying Candace's, cadence and style of how she just asks questions. Do we think we should be, at this point, investigating Candace Owens? Because she has, reaped a great deal after the demise of Charlie Kirk. When you look at just how put together her show is with talking about these topics and the amount of time that she's spent on it, she's really not making her husband a sandwich, as her book said that she would. However, she's spending a lot of time trying to tear down the legacy of Charlie Kirk, tear down his wife, Erica Kirk, a widow, and we know what the Bible says about that, and tear down Turning Point USA and anyone that supports Trump or the Republican Party. I mean, what's going on here? Should we start asking questions about her whereabouts and what she was doing on the day that Charlie Kirk was eliminated?
Well, that's pretty amusing because I noticed my wife and I are aficionados of crime shows. And one of the quickest way to get to the perpetrator is to find out who benefits the most from this death, right?
That's good.
Someone dies. And the first question you ask is, who has come out way ahead? And that doesn't prove the case, but that's an excellent starting point because really nobody commits a crime without a motive, right?
Right.
Now, think about with Candace, that is so weird here. I mean, again, you can give a completely secular explanation. And if you look up videos on social media of malevolent narcissism, it's a pretty good clinical description, right? The key here is not just the narcissism, but malevolent narcissism. So the narcissist believes that the world is created for your personal benefit and everybody else's job is sort of to serve you and gratify you. Now, where the malevolent part comes in is that if anybody spoils your narrative or challenges it, for example, Charlie Kirk is assassinated, of course, the normal expectation is that Turning Point USA will be handed over to Candace because she is the obvious sort of incarnation of Charlie Kirk. That doesn't happen. And so the malevolent narcissist cannot deal with that. And so they make you into a complete villain. You've done nothing villainous, but in their mind, you are a villain because you have shown up to spoil the narcissist picnic. And I think this goes a fairly long way in explaining Candace's malicious behavior. But sometimes it gets so bad that you almost have to search for the diabolical explanation and look for one of Satan's helpers to be doing her research.
You know, I like how you put that, malevolent narcissism. To bring it to a more theological and biblical connotation, we could go to 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1, where it says, "This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come," or better yet, dangerous times. We're getting ready to talk about the assassination attempts on Trump. But even following along the lines of this malevolent narcissism, verse 2 says, "For men shall be lovers of their own selves." There it is. Malevolent narcissism. Men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful. With all that Charlie Kirk did for Candace Owens, unthankful with all that the Jews in Israel, Dennis Prager, PragerU, Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro, Bob Shillman, who supported Candace Owens as well, and Turning Point USA, with all they did for her, the text says, first and foremost, they will be malevolent narcissists, but also they'll be unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, but they couch it in just asking questions though, right? Incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good. Well, I don't like the way that Erica Kirk cries. I think she should cry this way and not that way, right? All of this just salacious, just stupid stuff. The Bible is clear. You know, let me say this. The Bible is more current than tomorrow's newspaper. If people would just read it, pick it up and understand it, you will see that it addresses everything. It goes on to say, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof, from such turn away. It doesn't say turn towards these people and listen to them every single day on YouTube. It says turn away from these people. And there are many Christians who binge on that kind of content and the stuff that Tucker is pushing in this season. And these individuals are pulling Christians away from the faith. I strongly believe that. I believe that part of what Candace was used by Satan to do was to quell a revival. What do you think?
You know, I've been doing some debates in the last couple of weeks on topics like, has the church replaced Israel? So that was a debate against this guy, J.D. Hall. And I debated Andrew Wilson on should Christians support Jews in Israel? And one thing I noticed is very strange is there is an attempt to, in a sense, ransack the Bible or distort the Bible, but it's done in the name of the Bible. And that's what makes it so tempting, I think, and leads Christians, awry. So, for example, in these debates, one of the common themes is to try to sort of take the Jews out of the Bible. Now, think of this, right, John? I mean, it's not only the Old Testament that is Jewish, the New Testament is no less Jewish than the Old, right? So how do you do this? It's almost impossible. Well, the way they do it is that they abstract away from all the particularity of the text. They will even make statements like Noah was a Christian. Abraham was a Christian. And so what they do is by universalizing everything. Well, Jesus came for all mankind. So, what does it really matter? It's insignificant that Jesus was a Jew, as though it would be all the same if Jesus, for example, was Japanese, so they subtract, and the point I make to them is I go, listen, God could have appeared universally. Like God could have stamped his name on the moon. God could have painted the 10 commandments on the sky, but he didn't do that. He chose to reveal himself through history, through a particular people at a particular place in a particular time. And so we can universalize the message, but we can't sort of take all these particulars out of the Bible because you're stripping away the biblical narrative itself.
I agree with that. And I think part of this, Dinesh, is a quest and a battle for supremacy. You have the Black Hebrew Israelites from Philadelphia. They want supremacy, right? They claim to be the real chosen people. Okay, all right. Then you have the white supremacists, which are equally vile and corrupt. They are, just because they're white doesn't mean that they get overlooked, they get a free pass. It's as equally corrupt. And then you have God's chosen people who, me and you, we are Gentiles, and we have been grafted in to the olive tree. All right. We are the wild olive shoot. God originally did not go and bring his message towards non-Jews. But because of the hardness of their heart, because they rejected God, we are now grafted in. But Paul says we should not become pompous or arrogant because of this, because we're not the original part of the tree in the first place. And so I think what we're contending with right now is a battle for supremacy. But our focus should be to worship God and God alone. I feel in the same way that the Apostle Paul felt in Romans chapter 10 in the beginning. His desire for Israel was that they would be saved, that they would receive Yeshua HaMashiach, that they will receive Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. Well, at the same time, I don't support these modern conservatives or this neo-Republican Party, the Tucker Carlsons, the Candace Owens, the James Fishbacks, all of these people who have come along now and want to demonize everything Israel and lay the blame at Israel's feet for our children catching a cold in the morning. I mean, it's a sad travesty that we're witnessing right now.
Well, you know how deranged these people are when you see that they have gone from demonizing Netanyahu. That was Tucker's first target. His second target was Israel. Mm-hmm. Then he started attacking the Jews. Mm-hmm. Then he made a very interesting pivot. And from saying that those guys are all the bad guy, he then started saying, well, Islam then is the good guy. And that, that Sharia law, not so bad. That Hamas, not so bad. Bin Laden, not so bad. Maybe we should apologize to his family, and defending the regime in Iran. So once you're willing to kind of go full circle and start defending Islam, which is making inroads into the West with the clear ambition of taking over our society. You can just see how far gone these guys are. And despite many attempts to kind of draw them back,
yes,
they absolutely refuse. And they, in fact, dig in even more. Most recently, I saw that fake historian and Tucker just a day or two ago talking about why it's a bad idea to teach people about the Holocaust. It's a bad idea. Don't teach them about the Holocaust because they're going to develop a victim mentality and just kind of get immersed in it. Kind of leave that part out. Wow.
Yes, indeed. But where did this change come from? You talked about that earlier, you know, that when people make an about face and a transition towards something that's counterintuitive and goes, you know, diametrically opposed to who they truly have been or have presented themselves to be, something's going on. And oftentimes when you follow the money, you begin to figure out what's really taking place. 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 1 says, "Now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils." Okay, I think that's part of what we're contending with. Speaking lies, verse 2 says, "Speaking lies in hypocrisy." So they'll be lying hypocrites. That's a double negative right there. A liar and a hypocrite. This is what Paul says. Speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron. I know that at some point in your life, you've had to iron a black suit for some type of media event, okay? And if you iron that suit and you fail to put a white cloth over it, you will sear the very fabric of that suit. And when fabric, especially black, even dark blue, has been seared, it's no good. It's useless. And some of these people have been turned over to reprobate minds that are useless, and consciences that have been seared with a hot iron. I now want to turn towards talking about this 10th assassination attempt on President Donald J. Trump. I want to show you this video clip and then we'll come back to it. Watch.
This was also part of a national investigation. They are still looking into the details surrounding this, but the weapons that he was found with are very disturbing, which include body armor, a pistol, an AR receiver, an AR, high-capacity magazines, multiple notebooks containing concerning statements, 2 radio signal devices, and the FBI is investigating this along with the sheriff's department here in Los Angeles as Trump's arrival is set for this evening at 6:30. He's planning on having a dinner during this 2-day West Coast swing where he will tout his work in the economy and, from what we understand, take a few jabs at, of course, Governor Gavin Newsom. The purpose of the trip is to spotlight his economic accomplishments and crack down on crime. He was seen leaving the Capitol earlier today before getting on Air Force One to come here to California. We will have much more coming up in the next hour, but for now we are still here at Trump Golf Course getting ready for his arrival. There are police and security everywhere, as well as quite a few Trump supporters.
So 10 assassination attempts that have been documented, 4 of them in 2026, a loaded gun with hollow point bullets found in a man's car outside of Trump Golf Course yesterday. And so what do you see taking place with all of these assassination attempts, even as we approach the midterm elections? What are your thoughts?
I think, number one, it emphasizes what a transformational figure Trump is, because that's the kind of person. I mean, think back to Lincoln, for example, or even the assassination attempt of Teddy Roosevelt. By and large, people try to assassinate transformational figures. I find it interesting, by the way, that in 8 years, although he was a very consequential president, not in a good way, in my opinion, Nobody tried to do this to Obama. And if you just believe the rhetoric of the left, if America's a racist society, white supremacy is a dangerous force in the culture, you'd expect there to be multiple attempts on Obama, but not one that we know of. With Trump, multiple. And I think that shows us that, I mean, which is the more violent side, the left or the right? Quite obviously, there are a number of people who are radicalized on the left. And I think it is because it's not because they are listening to far left kooks. They're listening to the rhetoric of the mainstream of the Democratic Party. Trump is a fascist. Trump is a threat to all our liberties. Trump is trying to end America as we know it. So think about it. If you're an impressionable, slightly unbalanced person, you hear this, you're like, oh, whoa, well, I would be a hero to take out such a person. So this is my concern, that mainstream rhetoric is causing this kind of reaction. And then, of course, the person goes, well, that's not what I meant. I wasn't calling for anybody to do anything. But if you listen to your rhetoric, well, you were.
For these people who say that, oh, no, it's not our rhetoric, it's not our speech, it's because Trump is hateful and he wants to get rid of criminal illegal aliens. It's because he's racist. What do you have to say to that when these people come up with all of these different TDS-laden excuses for wanting to attack this man?
Well, this would be a little more believable if we just had a common culture where the same information was getting out to the whole country. Mm-hmm. But the truth of it is America's divided into sort of silos, right? So the people on the left are getting information from the left. They're not hearing Trump speeches because Trump speeches are never played on MS Now, and they're never played on CNN. They're getting the filtered understanding of what Trump said coming out of the mouth of Dana Bash or coming out of the mouth of one of the MS Now hosts. So they're getting the poisoned interpretation that, oh, what Trump did was he attacked immigrants. You know, even though we're not talking about immigrants, we're talking about illegals, and in many cases, criminal illegals, but it's never presented that way. It seems like Trump is out to get the immigrants. So if I didn't know better, I would be a little alarmed myself because I'm a first-generation immigrant. I'd be like, whoa, Trump's against immigrants. He wants to send me back to India.
Right.
Not at all, but that's because I'm listening to Trump. They're not.
I like that. The midterms are weeks away. After everything this week, so much going on. If you haven't heard about it yet, the In-N-Out Burger shooting in Idaho. I reported on this earlier today. You'll see it in the live segment where there's a pastor who assaults a young boy who was 14, and the pastor had HIV. It's just disgusting. Perez Hilton and the 10th attempt on the president's life. What is one thing voters need to understand before they go to the polls?
I think the one thing they need to understand is that we take the accomplishments of Trump for granted. We want him to do more. So there are people like, why haven't we seen more deportations? Well, okay, but the border is secure. That alone is huge. Can you imagine reopening the border in the way that Biden did? I mean, many people recently have seen those images in Spain where you just have an absolute avalanche of Moroccans descending on one of these Spanish towns with more people swarming in than are in the town in the first place. And it's an absolute invasion. There's no other way to really think about it. Well, that stuff is going to start up again in America. So I think what the Republicans need to do here is just highlight the difference, for example, between a Republican city and a Democratic city. Republican city, take a place like Chattanooga, beautiful city, very clean. You're never going to have some homeless guy show up at an outdoor restaurant and take the chicken wing off your plate or spit in your face. It's just not happening. And if something like that is spotted, 8 people are calling 911 and the guy's gone. So it's clean. It's not a nice place to live. You don't have tents everywhere. Crime rates are low. So this is the stuff that makes a difference to ordinary people. I also think that it is time to sort of wrap it up in Iran. That's dragged out a little bit too long. Trump needs to emphasize that we are paying attention to important problems at home, not just prices, but the cost of homes, things like that. So for the Republicans to drill down into those domestic issues, and make the case for what they're doing and all the bad stuff the Democrats stand for. The Democratic agenda is only appealing if people don't see opportunity, right? Because if you don't see a ladder of opportunity, then someone comes along and goes, well, we'll pay your mortgage, we'll freeze your rent, we'll forgive your loans. You're like, oh, okay, well, I guess I have no other option. But if you have other options, it is far more commensurate with human dignity, human aspiration, human freedom, this sort of ambition to get ahead on your own merits. But people need to see that ladder of opportunity to begin to start to climb.
Last question, I think. Are these midterms a referendum on President Trump, or is something bigger at play in the electorate right now?
There is a sense, particularly among young people, but it goes beyond young people, that there are massive changes underway in our society. Changes, and part of it is the economic impact of AI and robotics. Like, I find many people of my generation, the Reagan generation, like, we love AI because you can check facts in 1 second. It provides a wealth of information. But a lot of these younger people are like, Dad, I don't like it. Dad, turn that thing off. And I think part of the reason is that these young people feel this AI will displace all of them, will take all of their jobs, blue collar and white collar alike, that they'll be rendered kind of useless people in a society where the work is now done by intelligent, sort of non-physical, non-human agents. And so there are a lot of anxieties out there. What is this going to do to jobs? Where, am I going to have the same American dream that my parents and when I got out of Dartmouth, it never crossed my mind that where am I going to find a job? I took it for granted that those things were there, and it was just my job to kind of go out there and apply. I'd find the right job. I'd find the right career. I have a lot of choice where I want to go. And I see that kind of Reaganite optimism is gone. And so I think for this reason, our politics needs to speak to these anxieties and concerns that so many people have.
Dinesh, thank you so much for joining me on Disturbing the Peace. It's an honor to have you on the show. I'll be reaching back out to you as well to bring you back. How can people follow you and support you?
I do a weekly show, Dinesh. It's on X and YouTube and Rumble. Also, it's on audio. I have a book on biblical archaeology. I'd love to come talk to you about that. It's out in the fall. It's called The Stones Cry Out. And it's about how archaeology authenticates the historicity of the Bible and supports the roots of Western civilization and of America.
When in the fall does that book drop?
The book drops in October, but I'm happy to come on and talk to you about it anytime. It's available for pre-order now on Amazon.
Would you do an in-person interview on that? I'll fly you in.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Where are you based?
I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Okay, let's talk further because I'll try to make that happen. Well, but either way, we'll do it one way or the other. But of course, if we do it in person, it's always better. Yes,
I'm trying to put you on the spot here, so you have to say yes. But I'll send you in style, and I'll take good care of you and send you away with an honorarium. So it'll be worth your while.
Let's talk further. Okay, look forward to it.
You got it. Take care. God bless you. Joining me now is Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel, Bronze Star recipient, former congressman for Florida's 22nd District, former chairman of the Texas Republican Party, author of Guardian of the Public, and one of the most unfiltered conservative voices in America. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, welcome back to Disturbing the Peace.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Pastor John. Thanks for having me.
Likewise. Hey, we have so much to talk about in this segment. I'm sure you saw the recent shooting at the Idaho In-N-Out, and a civilian hero stepped up because he's armed and dangerous, just like you, my friend. He was prepared to pull out his peace shooter, 6-shooter, whatever shooter he had, and to defend the In-N-Out Burger and those who were around. August 1st, 2026, Chad Williams, age 24, opened fire with a long rifle at an In-N-Out Burger in Twin Falls, Idaho. 3 people were killed and 7 were wounded. And then Jordan Salinas, a civilian who had just pulled into the parking lot, drew his suppressed FN 5.7 pistol and returned fire. Take a look at this video clip, then I'll come back with you for a reaction. So this is Chad Williams going up to the Tesla there and just firing his rifle off, and just now he's ducking behind what it looks to be a trash can or some sort, some type of container. Someone's filming this from a car that's near him. Now I pray that they had a weapon on them, because they're just watching this and filming this.
I don't have service. Do you have service?
All right, and then we have another video clip on this. Take a look.
Investigators say two men, an off-duty state trooper, and this man, 35-year-old Jordan Salinas, fired back.
I peeked around the right-hand side of that sign closest to the road, and that's where I saw the individual with his rifle pointed at the vehicles.
Authorities believe those heroic actions drove the shooter from the scene and likely saved lives.
He seemed unusually comfortable aiming that rifle at those cars, and then as soon as some rounds started coming at him, everything changed. Immediately, all that, all that bravado he had immediately crumbled.
This In-N-Out had opened just a week prior. The company says one of their workers was killed while caring for customers. Christopher Claunch was also killed. His sister telling the New York Times he'd worked at a recovery center helping people with addiction, and his partner said he loved traveling, cooking, and the outdoors. We also spoke to Lindsay Tangy, who found several of the victims at the scene.
This is just not our community. None of us expected this.
And David, that hero civilian Jordan told me along with him there were dozens of people who jumped in to help with first aid, and all of that action very likely saved lives.
Lieutenant Colonel Allen West, when you saw this, what was your reaction as a soldier and a Second Amendment advocate?
Well, first of all, when you look at the words of the Second Amendment, it says the well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state. It is an inherent responsibility for each and every one of us as citizens in this constitutional republic that we are supposed to be the ones out there ensuring the protection of our life, our liberty, our property. And that's exactly what you saw happen. You cannot compensate for the people that wake up and decide that they're going to do something wrong, going to do something evil. But what you need to have are the strong deterrents out there. And again, the well-regulated, that means trained militia is each and every one of us. That's not the police. That's not the National Guard. That's not the United States Armed Services, Armed Forces. And the important thing that we have to understand is that you're never going to have that law enforcement officer that's going to be right there at that time. So it's important that we do have responsible, well-trained individuals that can go out there and make sure that they are protecting people. And therefore, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So at a time when we hear all of this talk about defunding police or, having social workers out there, or even worse, disarming Americans, that's not going to do anything but increase the criminal element. So I'm glad that this was resolved in a good and proper way, because this individual could have gone on an even greater shooting spree. Sad that we did see lives that were lost, but I also will say those people that are out there filming and using their cell phones, you need to take action, not just be Cecil B. DeMille.
Well said. I was thinking with the person that was in the car filming, the individual was saying, "Hey, duck down. We don't want to be seen." And it's like, okay, so if you're filming this and you have a weapon, that's one thing. But if you're filming this and you don't have a weapon, you're just insane. And like you said, if you do have a weapon, put the camera down and go out there and return fire and help save some lives. That would help. When you look at this whole situation and scenario, is there anything that you would have done differently if you were present?
Well, I think that Mr. Salinas, if I got it correct, his name, he said that when you started to return fire on this individual, his comportment completely changed. And I think that's the most important thing. People are always looking for the easy target, the gun-free zone, if I could put it that way. And so that's why it's so important that, these folks that are looking for the easy layup and they go in and believe that they're attacking unarmed individuals, they need to be met with a like type of response. And then you will see that they're not as courageous as they think that they are. So if you look at this and just imagine if you had, a couple of other people like Mr. Salinas that are there and they are laying down suppressive fire against this individual, then you can make sure that you keep him down, you neutralize him, and you save further lives.
The founders put the Second Amendment in the Bill of Rights, not the 10th, but the second. Why?
Yes.
Why? And does what happened in Twin Falls, Idaho, remind us exactly why they did?
Yeah, absolutely so. And I think it's great, being here in the 250th celebration of our American independence. There are two things. The founding fathers, when they look back at what happened on April the 19th of 1775, on that day at Lexington, Massachusetts, there was not even an America. There was not an army. There was not a Navy. There was not a Marine Corps. What did you have? You had 77 men of the militia there in Lexington that came out and they stood on that green, on that common, before a regiment of British redcoats. They were well trained. They understood that they were necessary for the safety and security of the people there and of that area. And also they understood that, they had the right to keep and bear arms. When you are a person that is armed, you will be a citizen. If you are disarmed, you will be a subject. That's the lesson that our founding fathers learned on April 19, 1775. The other lesson that is so important to realize when you look at the Constitution, all of those First Amendment rights are what we call passive rights: freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom of expression, the right to petition your government for redress of grievances, the right to peaceably assemble. But those passive rights means nothing unless you have that backdrop. And that's what the backdrop of the Second Amendment is. That's an active right. That precludes from having what you saw there on April the 19th, 1775. What if those men, those 77 men, stood on that field and they were unarmed? British would have massacred them. So that's what's important about understanding that relationship between the First and Second Amendment and also the historical event. And I had the honor of being there for the 250th reenactment of the Battle of Lexington last year.
You just said something. You said a subject.
Yes.
A subject or a what?
Citizen.
A subject or a citizen. I like
Yes.
that. Can you just dig in just a little bit more right there? That's a powerful statement.
Well, I mean, you think about it. Every totalitarian, dictatorial, autocratic regime has always done one thing at the beginning of their onset of them trying to assume power, and that is to disarm the people. You can go back and you look at Germany when Adolf Hitler and Hermann Goring, his director of the interior, they wanted a gun registry. Why did they need a gun registry? So they knew where the guns were. Next thing you know, the everyday German citizen didn't have weapons. The same thing, when you look across with Stalin, when you look at Chairman Mao, Pol Pot, Fidel Castro, and most recently with Hugo Chavez. And of course, when you look and see what is happening in Iran, people keep saying, well, why don't these people rise up? Well, guess what? They don't have a Second Amendment in Iran. So it's very easy for the government to go down there and just slaughter 30, 40,000 people, or to just pull people out in the streets and execute them. That's what separates the United States of America from everyone else. We as citizens are citizens. We are not subjects. And that is the key thing. And the Second Amendment ensures and guarantees that you will not be a subject, which is why you look at these Marxists on the left. One of the things they always want to do, they want to undermine the Second Amendment in each and every way, even though you have had several cases go before the Supreme Court, the Heller cases, and also McDonald versus the city of Chicago, which has established the Second Amendment. So I don't understand why, we have these states that say, you can have a First Amendment, but you can't have a Second Amendment. You can have this, but you can't have that. I don't understand the selective, acceptance of our Bill of Rights.
You're a combat veteran. Jordan Salinas ran toward a rifle with a handgun and felt no fear.
That's what we're trained to do.
But
you move to the sound of the gun.
What does it take to be that person that's willing to grab the handgun and approach a rifle? And is it something that can be trained or something you have to already be?
Yeah, I think that it's a little bit of both. I mean, courage is contagious. I think that some people innately have courage. Other people are trained to have courage and they grow into that. But without a doubt, it is about, your effective training. And again, it comes back to what it says in the Second Amendment, a well-trained, a well-regulated militia. And unfortunately, some people believe the regulated means regulation. It doesn't mean the ATF. It means being trained. So I think that you have to go out there and do your proper drills. And, I still go to the pistol range and, I pop off, 50 to 100 rounds to just make sure I keep my skills up. And so if I see someone that's out there doing exactly what we saw that shooter doing, and if I have my 9mm handgun on me, and, normally I carry anywhere from 15 to 30 rounds, which of course the left says that they should regulate how many rounds I should have in a magazine, where that's not their business. But if you are trained and if you are skilled, you can go and do what is necessary to maneuver against a person such as that and to suppress them. And if you're, quite good, you can neutralize that target with a proper amount of shots.
So I always wanted to ask you this question. If you're going to a store and you're getting someone prepared to be armed to practice their Second Amendment rights and freedoms and liberties, what are 3 guns that you think every person should own?
I tell people, and I'll just, go back to what I'm comfortable with, the Glock 9mm, Glock 19. That's one of my favorites. I still have it, and I think that's a good entry level. I think also Springfield Armory has a very good 9mm as well. I also carry a Ruger RXM 9mm. You also have Rost Martin has a good 9mm, and my current everyday carry is a Canic METE MC9 9mm. So again, I think it's so important that people go to a gun store, and lots of times they'll allow you to shoot different weapons to see what is comfortable for you, and you go from there. I think that without a doubt, with women, I would say women start out with a 380 pistol and get accustomed to that, but definitely a 9mm. So often, guys take a woman to the range and put a hand cannon, in their hands, and then, it just freaks them out. So start with a nice 380, ladies, and then move up to a 9mm. 380 is a very capable weapon as well.
If you had to pick one gun, what would it be?
My Glock 19 9mm. And look, I'm a guy, I'm old school. I still use the hard sights. I don't have a red dot optic on any of my pistols. So
you have good vision, though. I mean, come on.
Well, I got glasses, but I mean, again, it's about training and understanding. So, if you're within that 10-yard range, you're going to get hurt by the old colonel.
I believe you, and I believe that you are a master marksman. Indeed, I've seen some.
I don't know about master.
I know. I've seen some of the damage of the videos or the pictures that you have posted on social media and said, yeah, I'm going to be his friend, okay? Critics say the answer to mass shootings is fewer guns. Jordan Salinas used a gun to save lives. What should lawmakers understand about criminals and gun laws, and why can't Americans rely solely on 911?
You just asked me a great question. Having been a member of Congress, what do lawmakers not understand about these insidious, laws trying to restrict gun ownership? Laws are for law-abiding citizens. And if you're a criminal, you could care less about a law. That young man there in Trent Falls, Idaho, he didn't care about, laws. He knew that he should not be out there with a long rifle, just pointing it and shooting at people. But he did it anyhow. So there's always evil in the world. And I think you as a pastor, you understand that. And sometimes it's very important that we, each and every one of us, understand that a good guy or a good woman with a gun will definitely take out and neutralize a bad person that has a gun. But when you are telling the good people that they cannot have weapons, they can only have X amount of bullets in their magazine, the other person, the evil person, he doesn't care about that. He's already decided he's going to do something evil.
Yes, I agree with that. How can the church encourage responsible firearm ownership And the city.
Well, I think it's very simple. Churches should go out and find a range and have a range day. And that's something that we do at Sojourn Church because it's so important. And also churches need to make sure that they have a response force that is there so that they can deal with any type of active shooter, and they have a security system that is there. Because again, you don't want to create that easy target. You don't want to be that quote unquote gun-free zone because you have to show a deterrence. If there's anything that makes sure that you're safe and secure, is to show that you're a deterrent. I mean, there's a reason why I post those videos or pictures of me going to the range, because I want people to know I'm not an easy target.
You know what? I need to work on that. I need to post more images of me going to the range. Not with a 380 though. I need a 50 caliber. I need something to let people know and see, not to come jump on me. Because here's the thing. You know, when you're 6'4",
you can't. It's hard to conceal a 50 cal.
That's true. But you know, when you're 6'4", 250 pounds, no one wants to fight you. You know, they're gonna want to cut you or shoot you. You know what I mean, or hit you with a blow dart, something like that. And so I have to be prepared. And so you just encouraged me. You always do this. You inspire me to be more manly and get on the gun range or jump out of an airplane, which I'm such a wuss when I even think about that. But thank you for doing so. You always challenge me to make me better. Thank you for that. I now want to transition.
Iron sharpens iron.
Yes, I agree with that. And bullets, I guess, sharpen bullets. I don't know, or smash against each other. I now want to transition towards this last topic, something that happened in a Florida church. And it's a pastor who was recently arrested. The pastor has HIV, and he had a relationship with a 14-year-old boy and used the pulpit as a cover. Timothy Cheneyfield, age 42, pastor of St. James United American Free Will Baptist Church in Winter Haven, Florida, and chaplain for Compassionate Care Hospice, was arrested on multiple felony charges. Take a look at this video clip.
First off, let me introduce you to St. James United American Free Will Baptist Church. And you can see that the preacher is Timothy Cheneyfield. He's 42 years of age. But let me show you his picture. This is the preacher. And you go, okay. He's also a child pedophile, a predator. In addition to being a preacher at this church, he's also a chaplain for Compassionate Care Hospice. And if that's not enough, between 2012 and about 2024, he worked for the school system in Polk County. Between 2012 and 2016, he was both a para and a substitute teacher. Then he went into IT, and he worked there until about 2024, and about that time is when he became the lead pastor for St. James. So why do I tell you all of that? Well, because when he was at the schools, he was at Crystal Lake Middle School. We know that he stalks children. How we got into this investigation was simply this. We received a cyber tip from Instagram that there was illicit, inappropriate activity between an adult and a child. It first went to the Auburndale Police Department. They determined this was in the unincorporated area and immediately called us, and immediately we started our investigation. And what we found is that Timothy Cheneyfield went online with a dating app in search of children. And that's what he found.
God forbid.
Was a 14-year-old child. Did you hear what I said? A little boy. Then they moved from there over to the Instagram app where they chatted more often. And then Timothy Chaneyfield picked him up in front of his neighborhood on 3 different occasions. And on those 3 different occasions, he wasn't preaching, but he was messing around.
All right, that's enough of this. Lieutenant Colonel Allen West, I mean, in these situations, should we just call the firing squad? Should there be castration? How should we respond to these issues when predators, 42-year-old men, take advantage of kids, stalk them out, prey on them, infect them with HIV? How should we handle this?
Well, I'll just go to the Bible, where Jesus said, when you harm one of these little ones, it is better for you to have a millstone cast about your neck and thrown into the sea. I think that that's what we should look to do. And Sheriff Grady Judd, know him very well down in Polk County, Florida, you're not going to get away with that type of stuff in his county. But what is sickening is that, again, we have this perversion that is in the church, in the pulpit. And we need to clean this out. And so, people talk about, I think Oprah Winfrey once said that, everybody has their own truth. I got my truth. You got, no, there's objective truth out there. And that is evil. And when you look at Isaiah 5:20, where it says, woe be to those who will call good evil, evil good, who will exchange light for darkness, darkness for light, exchange bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. We've got to stop this. We got to stop having this condoning of people that are preying on our children. We have to stop sexualizing our children. That is really this culture that we're in right now.
And should we hold parents accountable? I mean, some of these parents just send their kids off with just anyone, just to pick them up and take them around. I don't care if the person is quote unquote the pastor or just the youth leader or whatever it might be. You know what I mean? I need to know you. You need to be verified. I've got to pray long and fast long before I'm just going to send my child with you anywhere, especially the parent to allow all of these sleepovers. As a kid,
this one-on-one stuff. No, you're absolutely right. And I think about this, Pastor John. I grew up in the inner city of Atlanta, Georgia, the old Fourth Ward neighborhood, and all these things about these teen gangs out at 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning. There was no way in the Sam Hill that my mom and daddy were going to allow me to go outside of the house after 10 o'clock.
Why?
Okay.
Why?
Because nothing good, like my dad said, boy, nothing good happens after 11 o'clock at night. And that's how I live my life.
But what?
That's how I lived my life as a soldier, and I tell soldiers, guys, nothing good happens after 2,300 hours. So put your butt in the barracks.
But what? What's typically happening during that time frame?
All kind of, you mean with these teen gangs?
Or just in general at that time, at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock in the morning?
It's just bad stuff. It's fights, gangs, and the sexual improprieties, all of these things.
That's right.
You should be working your kids hard. They should have, that's one of the things about this minimum wage being $15 or $20. Kids should be, having these minimum wage jobs. So they work hard, they learn responsibility. And then when they're done at work, they want to go home, they want to go to sleep, or you keep them engaged in activities and things of that nature. But for teenagers to be leaving the house and be out at 1 o'clock, you're right. Where's the parental responsibility? And I think it's important we start holding parents responsible.
Yes, I agree with that. He had access to children through the church.
Horrible.
Through the church, through the school system, and through a hospice care center. Only God knows what he did in that hospice care center. I mean, just to be honest. 3 different institutions. All 3 gave him proximity to vulnerable people. What does this case reveal about the way predators use institutional credibility, and how do we stop it?
Well, I think, again, you have to do better vetting of these individuals. And there was, without a doubt, I'm sure there was a track record. You can go back and find a trace of this in every one of these different positions that he was occupied in. But again, in the church, I mean, we're the deacons. We're the people that are supposed to be, the watchmen on the wall in these institutions. And so I think, again, there's this slippery slope that we've seen in many of our churches, sadly, in a lot of the Black churches, where they're allowing these perversions that are happening and trying to dismiss it. So we've got to move beyond that. And again, I hate the saying it takes a community, but it does take a community to safeguard over our children and make sure we're not allowing the wolves to come in.
Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, thank you so much. It's always a joy to have you on Disturbing the Peace. How can people follow you and support you?
Sure. I'm out there on all the social media platforms. I have my own little teeny tiny podcast called Steadfast and Loyal, not as astute and not as good as yours, Disturbing the Peace.
Yeah, right.
You can follow me on Substack, like I say, on all the social media platforms except for TikTok, because I don't want to have anything to do with the Chinese Communist Party.
Yes, indeed. You're a walking encyclopedia. Yeah, your show is phenomenal. Thank you so much for coming on my show and showing me how it's properly done. God bless you, my friend.
Pastor John, the only good thing that will happen to that guy, that pedophile,
yes,
that's the low end of the totem pole in prison. So we know what's going to happen to him.
That is right. It's coming back. Old Big Bubba Brutus is going to come pack him up.
That's right.
Thank you. God bless you, my friend.
God be with you. Take care, sir.
You too. Take care. Hey, man, it's always a joy to have Lieutenant Colonel Alan West on the show, and to have Dinesh D'Souza as well. It's such a blessing. I want to share this with you. A man ran toward a rifle with a handgun to save strangers he had never met. A man with a pastor's title was allegedly using that title to destroy a child. The Bible says there is a way that seemeth right unto a man, but the ends thereof are the ways of death. It is also true that the word of God lets us know. It says there are those who lay down their lives for others. We saw this happen, twice this week. And so John 15:13 says this: greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Jordan Salinas trained for years, ran toward a man with a rifle, and gave strangers the chance to go home to their families. That is John 15:13, lived out in a parking lot in Twin Falls, Idaho, and in a church in Winter Haven, Florida. A man who was supposed to lay down his life for his flock was using his flock as prey. The church that preaches John 15:13 must also have the courage to name it when someone in its own walls is living the opposite life. My friends, that is the true essence of Disturbing the Peace. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Do me a big favor, like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Set your notifications so you know when I am going live. And then go over to Spotify and Apple Podcasts and give me a 5-star review. And do me a big favor, let me know below in the comments section. Am I right or am I wrong? Am I weak or am I strong? God bless you and God bless America. Take care.